Thank you for having us here today with you. This morning I want to introduce a very special person, not only for the Hispanic community, but for our region. Patricia Robledo. She's from Manizales, Colombia. She graduated with double major in medical technology and biology from Lindenwood University in St. Charles, Missouri. She's owner of Robledo Translations and served government, federal, and private sectors. She was appointed in 2011 by our mayor, Maryville College, to head up the Office of Business Support for the City of Knoxville. Currently, she serves on the boards of Project GRAD, Community Coalition Against Human Trafficking, Community Health Council, and East Tennessee Quality Growth. She served on the boards of the YWCA of Knoxville, East Tennessee Foundation, Family Justice Center. She's an active member of the Executive Women's Association, Centro Hispano de East Tennessee, the Hispanic Chamber of East Tennessee, Hora, Latina, and the East Tennessee Civil Rights Work Group. Graduated from Leadership Plenty, CAC Community Leadership, Leadership Knoxville, and FBI Citizens Academy. She has been recipient of the 2007 FBI Community Leadership Award, the 2009 HoLa Latinas Unity in the Community Award, 2015 Lonsdale Community School Volunteer Hall of Fame, the 2015 Latino Awards for Spirit of Inspiration. She leads the Girl Scouts troop at Lonsdale Elementary School, and she has been to several medical missions to Antigua, Guatemala. Her contributions and service for our community inspire all of us, and she's a role model for our community. In Patricia, when you talk to her, you can see how great of a person she is, but also there are two things that I want to mention related to Patricia. Her willingness to serve the community. We met a long time ago, and so she's always eager to help everybody that connects with her. And I think through her, our community is doing much better. Two, our area is the third largest area as far as Hispanic growth in the U.S. Knoxville is the fourth largest area in Tennessee. Through Patricia, the Hispanic community, I think Patricia might be the first or one of the first Hispanic officials we have. Through Patricia, the discourse of the Hispanic community is being shaped. So she might not see it, but I think as we progress, you will see that her role in our community, in our area, has been very instrumental to us. So today, please welcome Patricia Robledo.
Wow, Carlos, you almost made me cry. I don't know if people are going to be able to see that. I always have this joke when Mayor O'Hara can't go to something and I have to introduce her. I have to go on her behalf. I always have to lower the microphone. And I said, you know, Mayor O'Hara would have to do the same thing because we're about the same height. I'm going to come to this side, I think. Is that okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thank you, Carlos. That was beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Bogart, Dean Camp, and Dr. Crystal Coulter for having me and the rest of Villamaría. It's just an honor for me to be here and be able to share with you my journey, my immigration journey, which I'm sure many of you will relate to. So my journey began in 1981 when I left the Andes Mountains of Colombia and came directly to the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. I came with my family, with my parents, and two of my sisters. One sister stayed behind and then she came later. I thought it would be fun to have a picture of both Manizales and Knoxville next to each other. Common theme here, right? You see the beautiful mountains. That was very comforting to us. The Andes Mountains of Manizales over there. You see that snow-capped is actually a volcano, and it stays like that year-round. Obviously, the one on the right is Knoxville during the winter time. We don't have seasons in Colombia, so the seasons have always been very magical for me. So, you know, mountains, kind of a common theme, right? So I think it's a misnomer when we say going up north and coming down south, because I certainly came down north, as you can see. The elevation of Manizales at over 7,000 feet, and Knoxville at under 1,000 feet. It's a huge difference. Nevertheless, it's just love the mountains. A mountain girl. Soon after arriving to Knoxville, my sister and I got a job working at the World's Fair, which was an amazing time. At the same time, what had brought my father to the area had been a job in Knoxville, and that fell through after moving his family overseas. And he ended up in Texas. My parents ended up in Texas and stayed in Knoxville with one of my sisters working at the World's Fair. Again, this was just an amazing time for me. It was the first time that I was really exposed to so much diversity. It was a very scary time as well. My English was very limited still. And the idea of working there was for me to give tours in Spanish to dignitaries. I was a VIP hostess. And so I guess they were hoping we would have a lot of dignitaries from Latin America coming, and I think that really happened that much. And so I was kind of thrown into the lions and say, you've got to work the information booths and you've got to give regular tours. And that was a very, very scary time for me, but actually probably the best thing that happened. When the fair ended, the sister that I lived with was a single mom, and so she decides that she needs to move to Texas to be with my parents because she needs help with her little one. My father does not want me to come to Texas, nothing against Texas, but we fell in love in Knoxville and wanted to stay in Knoxville. They had moved actually to Harlingen, Brownsville area, and really wanted to for me to do whatever I could to stay in Tennessee, except he couldn't afford for me to pay for me for tuition and room and board and such. So that was a really hard time for me because it was the first time that I was alone without a family, and I was still pretty young. But I was very lucky, and a local family decided to adopt me. It was the family of a girl that worked with me as a VIP hostess. So I was very lucky in that respect, and I was able to go to the University of Tennessee as an international student. Again, wonderful time, scary time, but the diversity, again, that I was exposed to was amazing. I met people from all over the world and different religions and different points of view for the first time. You know, this is a hard time for anybody at this age, right? Of discovery, of definition and such. And then in the context of meeting other people from other places and religions and questioning why you believe what you believe and such. So it was a time of a lot of growth. And this whole question of who you are and redefining yourself certainly gets more complicated with immigration. And I'm going to share a few challenges that I found in this process of self-definition, redefining myself. You know, the whole label, all the labels that come to mind thinking of immigration and such, you're new to us. I was never an immigrant before. I've never really defined myself as Latina or Latino or Hispanic. And so all this is like, what am I and how do I identify myself? And then people would ask you, what are you? You know, we have a very young crowd, but a few of us would know who this is. I was asked one time, "Are you Chinese? Because you look like Connie Chung." I took it as a compliment. I think she's beautiful. So it didn't hurt my feelings at all. But it's just interesting. I've been asked if I'm Mexican, Jordanian, Spanish. The weirdest one, though, I was at Weigel's paying for something, and I was signing the receipt, and I could see this, towering figure over me, and I just kind of looked up, and he looked down, and he said, "Are you an Egyptian or something?" Like, okay. Smile and I say, "Or something." So, it's just an interesting thing that people cannot place who you are. And I kind of like being that kind of racially ambiguous, because it's actually our future, isn't it? I mean, we're becoming more and more ambiguous. So this whole idea of Hispanic and Latino is, people ask me all the time, which one do you prefer? And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. We can have a debate and disagree amongst ourselves. It's never an easy question to answer. We locally use them interchangeably. And, but I don't think that there's a huge, really, preference there. As you see, 50% have no preference. So Hispanic is more targeted to the Iberian Peninsula, to Spanish, whereas Latino is more inclusive, comes from Latin, from the Romance languages, plus French and Portuguese and such. So all Hispanic are Latinos, but not all Latinos are Hispanic. And so Latino, I think, it's a more inclusive term. So it includes the Brazilians and people from Suriname and the Guyanas and such. So, however, if you ask us how we prefer to identify ourselves, it's certainly from our country of origin. I would have never said in Colombia I was a Latina or a Hispanic, I was Colombian, right? So if you know where we are from, that's how we like to be known. I have to say, recently there was an article in the News Sentinel and there was a quote by Sam McKenzie, who is the Knox County Commissioner, and he was criticizing the lack of diversity in the county government, and pointing to city government as being an example of having more diversity. And the quote was saying something about Mayor O'Hara having appointed a Colombian woman as her business liaison. And that just took my breath away. I said, Sam gets that. That's amazing. It's not a Latina or a Hispanic, a Colombian woman. I loved it. And I would be remiss if I take his opportunity. My biggest pet peeve. So I understand why it happens, because we have so many cities in the U.S. that are spelled with a U, but no, Colombia is spelled with an O. Another struggle I had when I first arrived was people asking me, how long have you been in America? Do you like American food? Do you like American music? And it really took me aback. I was like, I've always been American. So this whole new concept that I wasn't considered American was kind of new. In Spanish, we have a specific word to call people from the U.S., and that's estadounidense. We don't have the equivalent in English, and I wish we did. United Stations, I tried to make something up. In Spanish, sometimes we use the wrong terminology to say Norteamericano, to refer to somebody from the U.S. Well, people are shocked to find out that it's not just Canadians that are North, so are Mexicans, right? So that is wrong. So, that was something new for me. And I do try in my daily language to say U.S. Americans as opposed to Americans, to refer to people from the U.S. And this cartoon, really, I love this cartoon. It came out when Captain America movie came out. So this is in Spanish, but I'll translate it. So answers the phone, Captain American here, how may I help you? And so on the other line, this person says, please help, the little school in the village of Wanuni in the state of Oruro is on fire. Well, Captain America is dumbfounded. He goes back to his map to look at the map, and it says America on the top, but it's got the North and South America. And then next time he answers the phone, he says, Captain United States here, how may I help? Another, I can't say struggle, but sort of questioning. I never questioned my race before coming to the States. And then there was a question of what are you in terms of race? So it kind of makes you think a little bit. I hope that you recognize some of these people. They're famous Colombians. As you can see, all kinds of shades, right? So, you know, the word Latino, the word Hispanic really do not refer to race, right? And we have all kinds of shades in Latin America. I often hear in the news something about a 25, it's like looking for a 25-year-old Latino male or Hispanic male, and I go, I wonder if people close their eyes, what is it that they see? You know, what is an average, what is a typical, you know, there's no such a thing. So when we, I think it's confusing for Latinos as well, we're using Latinos / Hispanic to describe our race, which has nothing to do with race, so that's a very interesting thing. So I kind of looked a little deeper into race in Colombia because I wanted to understand more about it because I never really thought about it before. And so this is a breakdown of races in Colombia. We have mestizo, you know, which is the predominant. We are a mix of the Spanish conquistadores and the locals that were there, the indigenous people, because we have a sociologist here, so I'm really nervous now. And then, you know, and then the rest of the breakdown. So I decided, you know, yeah, I'm not white. So I'm mestiza, and that's what I'm gonna do. And so I checked the other box and put other race, and I'm mestiza. I'm very proud of it. The other struggle, this is a real struggle for sure, is the name. I love this quote. My name is my identity and must not be lost. Names are a big deal where I came from. To come to a place where your name doesn't mean anything, coming from a place where your name was everything, that was a huge change for me. Absolutely huge change. So in Colombia, as children, we used to have competitions about how far you could go into your family history. How many last names could you remember? And here in the US, I remember one time my kids had friends over, and I asked one of the kids, what's your mother's maiden name? What's your second last name? There was no concept of that, and I had no idea what the mother's last name was. And that just shocked me, absolutely shocked me. So in Colombia, you always introduce, and I'm sure other places in Latin America, you introduce yourself with at least 2 last names. So mine are Robledo Gomez. So you see my father Silvio, and Inés, my mother. And then we go back and forth with all the last names, going back as many generations as we knew how, as we could find out. So in 1985, I married here in Knoxville, and then I moved away for 2 years. In 1985, soon after getting married, I moved to Missouri, and I received a phone call. And somebody at the other end wanted to speak to Pat Craig. And I said, I'm sorry, you got the wrong number. And then I hung up. And I went, oh my God, I become Pat Craig. How do I go Patricia Robledo was with Jacob Restrepo to Pat Craig, and what does that say about me? Absolutely nothing. So it was shocking to me. I say from 85 to 95, I became a migrant of sorts. This was through my former husband's job. But it gave me a great opportunity. I lived in Missouri, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. And it was a great way to see really how Tennessee compared to other states and how different it was, and to really appreciate it, especially the weather, right? After living in New Hampshire for 7 years. In 1990, while in the Northeast, I became a U.S. citizen and had my ceremony in Boston, Massachusetts, which I thought was pretty cool. And I was really, really happy to be able to reclaim my name. You know, you have the opportunity to change your name in the naturalization ceremony. And then what I did also is I adopted my mother's name as my maiden name, as my middle name. So I never had a middle name. And here in the States, that was sort of a requirement of sorts. It's like, no, I have my middle name, but we need an initial to, you know, put it in the computer. So I always made one up, and so Patricia Robledo, and happy to have that name and proud of it. So in 95, came back to Tennessee, came back to Knoxville, and found that there was a very different Tennessee. The landscape had changed tremendously. Remember, I had been here through the World's Fair and then at UT as an international student, so my experience had been very much around people like me that were international from other places. For me, it was shocking to come back to Tennessee and see that there had been so many immigrants moving to the area. And then more shocking than anything was sort of the attitude that I found. Like before, when I was here, it was always kind of a curiosity factor of where I was from and what I was doing here. It was always very friendly. Certainly felt the difference when I came back. And I came back with 2 kids who I was trying to raise bilingual and bicultural. And certainly saw and felt the looks of you don't belong here kind of a thing. So that was kind of a shock to me. That change in the population, though, became key for me. I started volunteering with Bridge Refugee Services because I wanted to adopt a family that was living in the area, because I knew how difficult it had been for me. I mean, how do you go to the post office? How do you do this? How do you do that? So I wanted to give back. And it was actually during this time that I was recruited by a local company that was closing its factories out here, was Levi's, to help with the Spanish-speaking employees that needed assistance. And something triggered there this entrepreneurial spirit of the immigrant, right? Reinventing yourself and seeing opportunity. And I founded Robledo Translations LLC, which is still alive today. And throughout the years, it has been just an amazing ride for me. And I think it speaks of the experience that you have as an immigrant kind of helps you in all your facets of life, because my company has kind of gone up and down and moved and evolved, and you know, it's been an easy process for me to do different things. It started as interpretation, went to translation, then became voice work, then focus group moderation, then marketing, and all kinds of things. And so I've been very, very lucky to work with great local companies in all kinds of industries. I was recruited by the federal government as a contract linguist and worked with the Tennessee Supreme Court, so in government and private industry and such. I also had a wonderful opportunity to discover the nonprofit world and serve on so many different committees, and just an amazing job that nonprofits do in our community. And so I was very honored and still am to work with these organizations and many others. I mean, they have given me a lot of opportunities. You know, At the beginning, the very first slide said a journey, an immigration journey here for good. And I have to share that one of the very first questions somebody asked me when I was here in the States, still with limited English, was, so are you here for good? And it really, I do not know how to answer that question. It says, of course I am. Why would you think I'm here for bad? So I am here for good. 31 years to the date of having arrived to Knoxville, I received a call from a number I did not have in my cell. It was a Sunday evening, and it still takes my breath away. And I answered and said, hi, this is Maryville College. It's like, oh, Mayor. Says, can we talk? And so we got together the next day. And she invited me to be part of her administration, just absolutely mind-blowing. Never in a million years, that 17-year-old girl that had arrived to Knoxville could have even dreamt, saying like, maybe one day I'll be the first Latina immigrant appointed to an administration of the City of Knoxville. Never in a million years. Still takes my breath away. It makes me very proud. This is an article that appeared in the New Centro announcing my appointment. So along with the celebration came painful evidence of the racism that still exists today. And I'm going to read to you a quote from Dr. Lyons, who is deputy to the mayor. Of course, I'm sure a lot of you recognize Mayor O'Hara, but I wanted you to take a look at Dr. Lyons. So the administration and the News Sentinel took heat for closing down the comments in that article that was printed in the News Sentinel. And I want to read this to you. I'll get through it without crying. I monitored the comments from the time the article appeared. Literally within a minute or two, a comment appeared that was plain racist and disgusting. I flagged it for removal. Within a short time, 8 more comments appeared. They ran the gamut from sanctuary cities to green cards to more overt racist appeals and references to Mexicans. When I checked again in a few minutes, the comments were disabled. I breathed a sigh of relief and hoped that Ms. Robledo's children had not read the comments while they were still viewable. I am going to go here into a slide show of my Girl Scouts while I make my last comments. I don't know how to make these to go to show. Anybody can help me?
The play at the bottom.
Yeah.
The middle button, big button, yeah. Blue. It's in the middle,
Okay. So these are just precious, precious little children, my Girl Scouts in Knoxville, and I thought you would enjoy watching them while I make a few comments. The comments that were made in the News Central are not reflective of the community as a whole. I received a lot of positive feedback and encouragement from the community, but we do have a long ways to go with racism in the U.S. And it is important that we continue to talk about these and to fight, because it is like girls like these, like my Girl Scouts. Hispanics are the largest and youngest minority group in the U.S. 1 in 5 school children are Hispanic, 1 in 4 newborns. Never before in the history of this country has a minority ethnic group made such a large share of the youngest U.S. Americans. The kinds of adults these kids will become will determine the type of country we'll become, our society will be. I started going to Lonsdale in 2007. These kids were not even 20% of the population there, now they're more than 50%. These children who are immigrant themselves or first generation have developed at a very young age a lot of skills that we should recognize and value. These skills equip them to be a wonderful workforce. These kids have responsibilities beyond what their counterparts have had. I have learned so much more from my Girl Scouts that I could ever teach them. I'll tell you just one little story. One of these girls was skipping the sessions, and I thought, I'm gonna have to talk to her about commitment. So I sat down with her and I said, you know, there's responsibility and commitment in being in our troop. And so she shared with me that her mother had a brand new baby. Remember, this is elementary school. She and her brother, who are not much older than she is, took turns watching that baby so mom could go and work second shift. So who taught you about commitment and responsibility, right? So they keep it real for sure. These kids are bilingual, and some of them are trilingual. Yeah, they may not be totally fluent in the 3 languages, because a lot of them are Amerindians, they're indigenous, so they have an indigenous language, and then Spanish and English. But it speaks of their multiculturalism, of their ability to move from one culture, one world to the other. I mean, what a skill, right? They have grown up as interpreters, as navigators, as facilitators for their parents. They are teachers to their parents. As they have learned to pick up, they are intuitive and sensitive. They pick up cues, nonverbal, and from the environment of those different worlds in which they navigate. They learn to adapt, to evolve. They have faced uncertainty and change. At their core, these kids, who are our future, already have many leadership skills essential in an increasingly multicultural world and a fast-changing workforce. We would all benefit by not ignoring these children's worth and by removing the roadblocks that prevent them from accessing education. This is why Villamaría Day is such an important event. Maryville College gets it. I am so honored to have been invited to be your keynote speaker, be a part of this timely conversation. Gracias.
I'm struggling with what you taught us about wanting to be referred to as a colloquial woman. Because I would have thought that would have insulted you as not being an American.
Oh, okay.
Because I think that I've been taught by my teachers over here that I shouldn't refer to you, Jose, as a Mexican, right? So how
it's a great point, and even amongst ourselves we may differ. Some people say no, you know, because being Colombian is being American, by the way.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Thank you.
But I am a U.S. citizen. But I mean, I came at 17, so maybe that's part of that.
Right.
In that I do identify myself as Colombian. Am I proud of being a U.S. citizen and being here? Absolutely. But if you are asking me how to identify myself, I'll say Colombian. Had I come at 2 years of age, that might be really different. Might I be born here in the U.S. of Colombian parents, right? So when people ask me, where are you from? And people sometimes get freaked out, like, why are people asking me where I'm from? I love it when I'm asked where I'm from. I love it because I love sharing. I'm from Colombia, right? Now, had I been born here in the U.S. and being, you know, maybe I would get tired. It's like, I'm from the U.S. It's like, no, really, where are you from? You know, So I can see how some people might not laugh at, but I think it's all relative. Would you like to say something?
I don't identify specifically just as Mexican because it's not what I am, Mexican American. So that's what I say because I don't identify fully with the Mexican culture. So that's just I don't know, it's a personal thing for me personally, I guess. So if someone says, oh, you're Mexican, yes, I am. That's not the entire identity of who I am. So it's just, it's complicated and I really hate labels. And it's always weird to me personally, even when I'm describing where I'm from or who I am, like, are you saying I'm from here, Tennessee, because I lived here for the past 7 years, or are you saying where my family's from? So all that goes into my head when I'm trying to answer that one question, because I don't know which you're referring to specifically.
Ian.
He's going to say that a little bit. I was born in Chicago, and by just coincidence, my mother is from the Dominican Republic. My father was from Puerto Rico. And I've been asked many times the same question. I served in the United States for 27 years as a military member. And now I'm still working as a civil service with the Department of Labor. So you would consider me, if I tell you all that background, that I'm an American, right? But when you look at me, a lot of people, and some people have said this to me, you don't sound like you look. For real, I've heard that. You don't sound like you look. And I've been asked that many questions, and I'm like, this is what I think. This is my personal opinion. I really believe that you are from where your childhood memories are from. When you look back and you remember where the street that you grew up on, and now they make it very easy for you because that could be one of the questions that you have when you are setting up a bank account or something. And now one of the questions, what is your mother's maiden name? So it brings you back to that. So we do it, just to make it easy. So when you can remember the street that you grew up on, and you can remember your mother's maiden name, and you remember those fun memories of growing up, that's where you're from. Not necessarily where your mother was at the time of birth, not necessarily where you later on migrated to or you became it later on in life. But that is where you're from. I grew up in Calle Lidio Street, okay, Bayamón, Puerto Rico. I am Puerto Rican because that's my childhood memory is from, okay? But I am also an American because it's part of the American, North America, it's in the Caribbean. You need a passport, remember that? Our government said it very well, okay? You don't need a passport, but you know what? More than anything, I am human. I'm a citizen of the world. And let's just remember that.
I think one thing that I decided early on was that when somebody asked me a question that kind of took me aback, or a comment that took me aback that maybe a lot of people would find offensive, I would always go back to, well, what do you, just taking aback, it's like, what do you think the question is coming from, or the comment is coming from, the motive. And I think for the most part, it's out of curiosity and sometimes out of ignorance. And so I feel like sometimes we overreact when we are asked questions that we find offensive or comments, and I think it closes the conversation. It closes the doors to conversation. So it just has helped me not take things very personally. And so if somebody were to say Colombian woman, and I don't get offended, or it's just. But I think we're all different, and I think we all deal with that in a different way. Anything else? Any comments? Any questions? Thank you so much again. This was an amazing opportunity for me. Thank you.